This is where we bring the fish in. So we buy fish every day, fresh from the Grimsby auction fish market, which still survives here in Grimsby. Fish mostly in the UK comes from North East Atlantic. So mostly from Iceland or the Faroes or North Norway. It gets shipped down in a big sort of ferry. So the boats go out in Iceland, they catch the fish, it goes onto a big ferry and comes down to Grimsby, and then is graded in the Grimsby fish market and sold on the auction. We like to see our fish before we buy it. We like to inspect it and just make sure it's the best we can possibly buy. The idea is that yeah, we can buy fish from away, we can buy fillets from away, but if we buy our whole fish and fillet it ourselves here in the smokehouse, we can control those elements and get the best we possibly can. So we bring fish here every morning, having bought it early that morning, we fillet it and then we brine it in a saltwater brine for a period of time. Then we hang the fish to drain on these horses here, as you can see, on these metal rods which are called speets. The fish is left to drip dry on these during the morning, and by the end of the morning these horses will be full of brined haddock. And behind us we have the smokehouses. So the smokehouses are the same, they've been for over 100 years. I think that it's important to remember that in the old days, pre-refrigeration, smoking was and curing fish was a method of extending the shelf life of fish. These days, smoking is about flavouring the fish. So we're imparting a very delicate flavour of smoke into fish in a traditional form, and only in Grimsby do we have this traditional smoking process, which is what we've acquired a PGI for. PGI, Protected Geographic Indication, is what we have for the Grimsby Traditional Smoked Fish, and that was awarded to us several years ago, and that reflects the unique nature of what we do here. And it's only Grimsby Traditional Smoked Fish that has that PGI status. It's the same status that's awarded to champagne, Parma ham, Cornish clotted cream, Melton Mowbray pork pie, and it recognises the unique art that's employed in producing this product. What's interesting really is that the Italians have 230 protected food names, the French have 270 protected food names, in England there are only 80 protected food names, and there's only one in Lincolnshire, and that's Grimsby Traditional Smoked Fish. So it's a really unique process, and we should look after it and protect it, and that's my job really, to keep it going for another 100 years. Maybe not my job entirely, but certainly for the next decade or so, that's our challenge. So, you know, this is a really specialist art. There are lots of variations of smoked fish you can buy, and the biggest difference between what we're doing and what is generally available in the supermarkets and from other suppliers is a kiln smoked, which is an electronic sort of stainless steel box, and you wheel the fish in, you switch it on, you pump a bit of smoke in, you dry it for 4 hours, that sort of thing, and then you take it out, pack it and redo it. So load another load into the kiln, and that can be done 24 hours a day. We can't do that here in Grimsby. We have to have we have one fill of the smokehouse per day. The fish is smoked for a minimum of 12 hours, sometimes longer, which is an interesting thought really, because we could get away with 8 hours in the smokehouse, give it a bit of flavour, dry it a little bit, but that wouldn't produce the quality of fish that we're after at Alfred Enderby. We put it in the house for a little bit longer, get a better flavour, a little bit more drying, and we lose a bit more weight. So commercially it's probably not the thing to do, but the flavour and the unique product is preserved in that regard. Okay, so we've drained the haddock, it's sat here for most of the morning, and then we put it in the smokehouse behind us. When we load the houses, we open up the doors and open up the bottom like that. One guy climbs in from the top down, one guy climbs in from the bottom up, and then we pass the haddock in this way up the house, and it's loaded on these bars in that way there. So it's much higher than that from the bottom, because this is a cold smoking process, okay? We're not trying to heat the product, we're not trying to cook the fish, and we don't want it spoiling through heating. And this is really why Grimsby has acquired the PGI. Grimsby is naturally very cool in the night time. We get sea frets coming in from the Humber and from the North Sea, so even in the height of summer we're able to keep our nighttime temperatures very low, and that's the unique thing about Grimsby. You couldn't do this process in the middle of London or in the middle of the country, particularly in the summer, because the nighttime temperatures are often too hot and the fish spoils in the house. So we're not, this is a cold smoking process, and this is why we have these really tall smokehouses. The fish is a long way away from the heat, and it's this infusion of smoke that we're trying to get. Okay, so in the morning we come upstairs and start taking the fish out of the smokehouse. The fish has been smoking behind these doors, so this is the first floor of the smokehouse, and we come in and open these doors and take the fish out. This is the build-up of tar from smoking for over 100 years. So this is a 100-year-old door, and this is the build-up of tar that we affectionately like to keep, and it's part of that flavour process. So the tannins and the flavours that are within the fabric of the building are helping to flavour the fish. A bit like a whiskey in sherry barrels and so on. It's part of the process, and that's really beautiful. You can't get that in a modern kiln. You can't get it in a modern environment. You know, these sort of places are normally fish is produced in a very hygienic environment, stainless steel, and it misses out on this bit. Lots of people think that smoked fish needs to be yellow, and obviously yellow was a really useful way of identifying fresh fish against smoked fish. And in the old days, a lot of fish was yellowed, and it's a colouring. We don't necessarily we don't sell very much of that. We sell very little yellow fish now, a little bit each week, but predominantly it's a clear brine haddock, natural colour, and without any yellowing at all, which is my preferred fish. Don't see any point of eating something that's yellow, and unless it's a banana, but not fish. So this is the haddock that's come out of the house that's been smoked overnight. You can see it's a very sort of glossy sheen. It's quite dry really, and certainly the outer skin is dry. That's a raw product. It needs cooking. It needs very little cooking really, and that's the key. What we must remember is this is it's not cooked, but it's when it's been cured, it takes a few minutes really to finish off. So my recommendation would be to cut that into a portion, put it in cold water, bring it to the boil. As soon as it starts to boil, then take it out, stick it on the side, cover it with foil, let it rest for a few moments, like any meat, and it carries on cooking, and that's it. That's all it needs. This really is a modern day fast food, and you know, the best form of protein, the healthiest form of protein you can get. Absolutely beautiful. We then pack these fish in 3 kilo boxes, and they go off all over the country. So our main sort of market is London, South Coast, all over really. To the more discerning kind of customers, this is the best that we can produce. We only have one standard. It's much easier to produce the very best we possibly can and market it as such. So we don't try and do 2 grades really. We only produce 1 grade, and that's the very best we can. We talked earlier about a variety of smoking methods, to the point where some smoking operations are a question of putting it in a brine with an essence of smoke. So that's just a liquid smoke that's put into the brine, and that gives it a flavour. So that's not smoking. This is smoking traditionally. This is the best you can get, and that's what we're trying to aim for. So smoked salmon is done in the same smokehouse. This is dry cured in pure salt for a period of time, which draws the moisture out of the salmon and helps that preserving process. Then it's hung in the smokehouse for 24 hours minimum, and it gives it a very, very delicate flavour. Traditional dry cured cold smoked salmon is a thing of absolute beauty. You can always tell as well when it's dry cured in salt. You see these little nicks in the back of the salmon. This allows the moisture to escape from the thickest part of the salmon when it's in a bed of salt. If it hasn't got those nicks in it, it probably isn't dry cured, and there's lots of ways of getting the brine into salmon. Some people inject it, they put it into brine tanks, it's a lot quicker, and of course it adds moisture and weight. We don't do that, we do it in a really traditional, beautiful way, and it produces a very, very delicate salmon. So that is unsliced, because like most things, better if it's not sliced. When you slice something, you're breaking that cell wall for the first time. The oils that are released with that first cut is always better just before you eat it. And cutting something is starting the process of degradation. So you really are starting the breakdown of a product, whether it's cheese or bread or ham or your roast beef on Sunday lunch. You know, same is true for salmon. And it's not difficult. This is it's pretty straightforward to cut. Don't be frightened. And of course, if you've got an unsliced piece of salmon, you can also cut it into a portion. And if you cut it into a portion, you can then put it on a baking dish, a baking tin, put it in the oven for 20 minutes, and cook it, and that becomes hot smoked salmon, which is absolutely beautiful. And it's different again from fresh salmon. It's different to smoked salmon. It's another dish, and you can control that yourself. And certainly, if you've got an end of the salmon, you put that in a baking tin, and you put it in the oven for 20 minutes, uncovered. Don't put anything on it. And then when it's cooked, you can break the meat off into a rice dish or a veg dish, roast vegetable dish or a rice dish or a pasta, and that just gives it a bit of a lift, a bit like bacon bits in a salad. Very, very delicious. So absolutely beautiful, and don't be afraid to cut it, don't be afraid to enjoy it as it should be in its entirety.